We were called savages, but the gods they worshipped recognized us. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council trembled beneath the arrival of yet another verdict cloaked in mockery. The mirrored floors, vast and cold, reflected 1,000 species and twice as many egos. Above, the void sectors spun in holographic glory. Starless, untouched, forbidden, they turned slowly, casting violet and amber light down upon the tiered amphitheater, gilding the farce with sacred illusion. Marcus then stood silent amidst the human delegation, 12 souls in dark steel gray uniforms, hemmed in by a storm of disdain. He didn't blink. Behind his storm gray eyes, a tide coiled tighter. From across the rotunda, Ishkaran Ambassador Varesh Kol rose like a skeletal tower. His skin shimmered green and bone pale, like cracked stone submerged in shallow water. "The humans," he sneered, his voice a dripping blade, "seek entrance to sacred void sectors. They squat at the table of titans and mistake it for home." Laughter rippled through the tiers. The agelin huffed and clicked their reptilian jaws. The Telvanni clattered mandibles. The Shalari shimmered with amusement. Lieutenant Mallory shifted behind Marcus, his voice a low hiss. "We just going to let them piss on us again?" Captain Adrian Tyler's hand clamped his shoulder, silencing him. Marcus didn't turn. He watched the hollowed-out galaxy mock Earth's breath. "The void sectors are more than tombs," Varesh Kol continued. "They are temples. And savages," he paused, letting the word rot in the air, "do not belong in temples." The council began formal procedures. A ceremonial rite was unfurled in the air, glowing symbols twisting like barbed vines. "We propose formal exclusion of Sol representatives from all future expeditions." Marcus's jaw tensed. This had been expected, predicted, prepared for, but not yet countered, because that moment required silence, required submission. Until the galaxy thought itself victorious, until it lowered its guard, and above them all, high on its pedestal, the eye of Anu shimmered, black as void, unmoving, forgotten by those who feared remembering, a remnant of gods long dead, or merely dreaming. Marcus let the ritual play out. Let the laughter rise. Let the vote loom. And as the minister raised his long-fingered hand to close the decree, Marcus stepped forward, one step, just one, and the chamber froze. Hundreds of eyes, compound, reflective, glowing, turned to him. Protest rippled like a biological alarm. Varesh Kol hissed, "You are out of order." But Marcus walked, boots striking mirrored stone like war drums in the quiet. He passed layers of delegation. He walked alone. He stopped at the eye. Silence thickened, swelled, trembled. And then he spoke. Not in words they knew. Not in sounds any human should have remembered. But in syllables carved into the first bones of the earth. The eye of Anu answered. A pulse, felt in marrow, and the galaxy remembered. The pulse that shivered through the eye of Anu shattered the chamber's stillness like crystal dropped from heaven. Delegates gasped, their bodies recoiling as if struck. The eye, silent for millennia, had acknowledged. And it had acknowledged him. Marcus then, human, savage, a low hum built beneath the floor, resonating through the mirrored stone. Lights flickered. Holograms of the void sectors twisted in slow, unnatural spirals, distorting as if listening. Marcus's hand remained outstretched, palm facing the obsidian orb. His voice carried again, low, resonant, terrible in its certainty. A cadence not taught but remembered. from blood, from dream, from bone. Captain Adrian Tyler stood frozen, eyes wide. "He's speaking it," he whispered. "The Ishtar car." Lieutenant Mallory swallowed, voice rough. "But we never finished decoding it." "He didn't need to," Tyler replied. "It finished decoding him." Ambassador Varesh Cole clawed at the podium, his voice ragged with fury. "This is blasphemy. That artifact is sacred to all. This creature defiles it with mimicry and trickery." No one answered, not because they agreed, but because they no longer knew what agreement looked like. Something deeper than language had taken root, the kind of knowing that bypasses reason. The Eye of Anu pulsed again. Symbols flared along its surface. Ancient glyphs, sharp and fluid, coiled into the air like smoke made from starlight. Marcus did not falter. His voice grew louder. The glyphs matched his syllables. A lock clicked open inside the chamber. Not physical, a mental lattice. A wound in shared consciousness rethreaded. From the delegation tiers, the Ilarian floated closer in their gravity thrones, their glow muted. The Kari leaned forward, armored limbs still. Even the aloof Altarians tilted toward the center, silent. The chamber listened. And Marcus spoke the name of the first gate. A harmonic note sang from the eye, low and vast. The void sector holograms halted their spin. Far away, in systems long dead, relay stations blinked awake. Ancient coordinates realigned. Stars beyond known maps flared brighter for a heartbeat. And a signal, encrypted in a language buried in humanity's mitochondrial DNA, burst outward. Back on Earth, in Geneva Complex 7, red lights flared across linguistic analysis labs. Dr. Carnes dropped his stylus. "They opened it," he breathed. Dr. Moline stared at the vibrating spectrogram. "But we never gave the command." "You didn't," said Marcus's voice from the council chamber, broadcast across encrypted channels. "But I remembered it." Inside the council, chaos tried to reassert itself. Varesh Cole screamed, "You violate protocol. That tongue is forbidden." Minister Sarak Devor of the Arcant rose slowly, translucent skin shimmering. "It cannot be forbidden," he said. "It is recognized." The chamber stilled again. Marcus lowered his hand. The Eye of Anu quieted, but it remained lit. His voice, calmer now, rolled like distant thunder. "We came begging for a place. We were mocked, lied to, cast aside. But the gods you pretend to serve remember us. And now, so will you." A final glyph burned into the air above him. Portador, bearer. The first of the old titles. The chamber did not vote that day. It submitted. And above them all, in the void sectors, long dormant systems stirred, waiting. The Eye of Anu remained alight. Long after Marcus Thina lowered his hand, long after the ministers and ambassadors regained their breath, it pulsed, quietly, patiently, as though it waited for something more. Or someone. Marcus turned without a word and walked back to his delegation. The space around him parted like silk torn in reverence. Captain Tyler didn't speak, neither did Mallory. They didn't need to. They had all heard it. The recognition. Council members tried to re-establish order, but their attempts rang hollow. Even the automated vote protocols failed to respond to commands, as if the very machinery of politics had chosen to listen instead of function. Minister Sarak Devor finally called a recess. In a quiet chamber beneath the council floor,
Marcus sat before a terminal flanked by diplomats and intelligence officers. Screens floated around him, full of partial translations, pulses from reawakened systems, and decoded data fragments from beyond the void. Ambassador Dimple tapped one overlay. "We've confirmed 23 awakenings, relays, vaults, structures." Tyler folded his arms. "What kind?" "Not defensive," Dimple said. "Not yet, but deliberate." Mallory looked at Marcus. "What do you think it wants?" Marcus didn't answer for a long time. "It doesn't want. It remembers." In the void sector known as DS9, an orbital vault bloomed like a steel lotus. Its petals retracted with mathematical grace, revealing a core of crystalline memory towers humming in light. No one was near it. But it began transmitting. To Earth. To Marcus. At Geneva Complex 7, linguists scrambled as a deluge of code flooded their systems. Dr. Carnes paced, muttering to himself. "This isn't a message," he said. "It's a mirror." "A mirror of what?" Melina asked. "Of us. Of what we were always meant to become." The phrase hung heavy. Marcus stood at a balcony overlooking the council's central plaza. He watched the holograms of the void sectors rotate slowly above the city skyline. Tyler stepped beside him. "We're being invited in." "We're being called," Marcus said, "and they're terrified." He pointed toward the distant towers of the Ishkaran embassy. A force field now shimmered around them. Security doubled. Drones swarmed like hornets over every external wall. "They thought we were just clever apes," Marcus continued. "That we would scrape the stars with scrap and desperation. And instead," Tyler asked. Marcus smiled, faint and cold. "Instead, we spoke with the tongue of their gods." At midnight, the human delegation received official acknowledgement. Not apology. Not welcome. Recognition. A compromise, couched in ritual and redacted language. But within it lay the first true concession the Council had ever offered. Humanity had standing. And access. The void sectors would no longer be off limits. They were now a proving ground. On Earth, preparations began. Fleet Command authorized the launch of the Enuma Elish, Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh-II. Exploration-class vessels built for endurance, diplomacy, and defense. Marcus was named Portador formally. His command absolute over the mission's execution. The Council would not interfere, because they couldn't. In a chamber sealed beneath the Earth's crust, Marcus stood alone. Before him, an artifact recovered from one of the forgotten moons. Not studied, not understood, only felt. He reached toward it, and it opened for him, not with noise, with memory. Glyphs spiraled into the air. Coordinates, histories, warnings, names. One in particular, Anulkar. A gate, a test, and maybe a throne. Marcus turned away, already hearing the hum of awakened systems whispering across the void. They had been savages, yes, but not forgotten, not by those who mattered, and certainly not by the gods. The Enuma Elish slipped through the veil at the edge of known space, her hull kissed by the whisper-thin radiation of the void sectors. Her sister ships, Gilgamesh and Gilgamesh-II, followed in formation, ghosting through starless silence where the laws of motion faltered and light bent out of habit, not physics. Inside the command deck, Marcus Thena stood in quiet observation. Before him, Anulkar loomed. Not as a planet, not a station, but as presence. A structure shaped like indecision and orbiting a wound in space. It spun slowly, faceted like obsidian shards converging at impossible angles. Telemetry failing past 1,000 clicks, Mallory muttered. Everything starts looping. Readings contradict themselves. Exactly as the simulations predicted, Tyler added, which means they're not predictions anymore. They're invitations. Marcus stepped forward, hand hovering near the interface node. Bring us closer. The Enuma Elish groaned softly. Her vector curved with unthinking grace. As she approached Anul-Kar, time shivered. In orbit around Earth, observation stations recorded the ship's disappearance with growing unease. No explosion, no anomaly, just absence. A blank where signals should return. At Geneva Complex 7, Dr. Carnes was already plotting the divergence. They've crossed the threshold, he whispered. The gods are watching. Within Anul-Kar, space wasn't a vacuum. It was memory, distilled and suspended. The ship's interior lights dimmed, not from failure, but submission. Marcus activated the core translator. Symbols scrolled faster than eyes could track. He didn't read them, he absorbed them. They left this place for those who could remember forward, he said softly. What does that mean? Tyler asked. That causality isn't a chain. It's a mirror. We weren't supposed to find this. We were supposed to create it by arriving. The ship entered Anul-Kar's outer shell. Black geometry gave way to corridors of fractal construction. Light twisted down the passageways, part natural, part invitation. The hull adjusted automatically, not deforming, evolving. They docked inside something not made for them and yet perfectly sized. When the crew disembarked, boots struck a surface that shimmered with ancient resonance. The walls were smooth and cold, but shimmered in reaction to Marcus's presence. Glyphs ignited as he passed. Looks like it's reacting to your DNA, Mallory muttered. No, Marcus corrected. It's reacting to my memory. They reached a chamber, circular, altar-like. At its center floated a crystalline structure resembling the Eye of Anu, but larger, broken, and incomplete. The first gate, Marcus whispered. It's damaged, Tyler said. No, it's waiting for what we've brought. He removed the artifact from the vault on Earth. The key recovered from the forgotten moon. The moment he held it aloft, the gate stirred. Energy lanced from the ceiling, spiraling into the key. Symbols screamed across the walls. The gate repaired itself, fragments locking into place like memory reclaimed. And then it spoke. Portador recognized. Test pending. Test? Tyler asked, alarmed. The floor fell away. They awoke on a plain beneath twin suns. Sky fragmented like broken glass. Not virtual, not dream, not simulation. Where are we? Mallory asked, hand on his pulse pistol. In the memory of gods, Marcus answered. Creatures emerged from the horizon. Tall, thin, glimmering. Not hostile, not friendly. Observers. Each held a fragment of something Marcus knew but couldn't name. The test had begun. And the gods weren't watching. They were judging. Marcus rose slowly, boots crunching against what looked like stone. But when he knelt, it flaked like ash. The sky above was splintered into shards of colorless light, and the horizon rippled, as if embarrassed by its own limitations. There was no wind, no sound, just judgment. The figures standing in the distance didn't move. Each of them held a fragment, a shard of a forgotten sigil, pulsing faintly. They're not alive, Mallory said. They're echoes. No, Marcus replied. They're proxies. Each one is a question the gods once asked themselves. Tyler approached one cautiously. Its face was a blank slate, polished obsidian that reflected only possibility. He extended a hand, and the figure split, shattering into a wave of sigils that circled his body. Tyler dropped to one knee, clutching his head. Tyler! Mallory moved, but Marcus held him back. He's being tested. Across the plane, the other crew members encountered similar forms. Each time a proxy was touched, a trial began. Memories resurfaced, twisted, reinterpreted. Regrets weaponized. Pride turned against them. Mallory faced his brother, dead 20 years, but here, alive and angry. Why'd you leave me? It was war, Mallory breathed. I couldn't. You chose Earth over me. And then the memory split, fracturing into cold judgment. Across the plane, Tyler stood again, face pale. It's not punishment, it's clarification. Marcus approached his own proxy. It was a mirror. But in the reflection, he was no longer Marcus then. He was the boy on Titan base, watching the fleet burn, powerless. He was the rebel in the ruins of Europa, stealing water and information. He was the soldier. He was the savage. Are you still him? The mirror asked. No, Marcus said. I remember him, but I am what he chose to become. The mirror didn't shatter. It bowed, and the horizon changed. A gate shimmered into view. Not the first gate, something older. Its structure was made of concepts: loyalty, sacrifice, brutality, wisdom. Its sigils burned in dual layers, past and potential. Tyler stepped forward. Do we enter? Marcus turned to the crew, all of them marked now with glowing bands of memory. We don't enter, we return. Mallory frowned. Return where? To the place that made us worthy of being seen. That made us more than what they named us. The gate responded to their steps, opening silently. And inside was not a chamber or corridor. It was a bridge, spanning stars, leading to the center of Anulkar. To the next question, to the next judgment. The bridge shimmered beneath their boots, every step echoing like a hymn sung backward through time. No stars lit the space beyond. Only the memory of light faded to whispers. The crew walked in silence, not out of fear, but reverence. The space was too old for sound, too honest for lies. At the bridge's end, a chamber bloomed open, not with doors, but with recognition, like the void had watched their approach and approved. It was circular, vast, suspended above nothing. A dais rose in the center, ringed by 9 empty thrones, each one carved from a material no sensor could classify. Shapes flowed over their surfaces, like thought-made stone. What is this place? Mallory whispered. Marcus approached the dais, the air thickening as if reality braced for his arrival. The Hall of the Nine, he said, the first sovereigns, not rulers, deciders. On the dais, a 10th shape formed, not a throne, a crucible. Above them, the lattice of Anulkar began to hum. The chamber vibrated with incoming presence, not arrival, remembrance. The gods did not travel. They reappeared where they had once been seen. The crucible filled with light. From it, figures emerged. Not flesh, not machine. Embodied concepts, clothed in familiarity to soothe the lesser minds. Each one bore a fragment of humanity. Marcus saw himself, but not only him. He saw Earth's legacy, the defiant spark, the builder's will, the cruel mercy of survival. Do you understand your place? Asked the first figure. No, Marcus said. I understand yours. Shock rippled. The thrones did not flare in anger. They shimmered in interest. You have walked memory, said another, faced judgment. What do you bring us now? Choice, Marcus said. Not petition, not allegiance, just choice. The figures circled the crucible. Inside it, visions swirled, of earth rising, burning, enduring. You were made for destruction, one whispered. We were made for survival, Marcus replied. And now we remember why. The crucible flared white. Back on the Enuma Elish, alarms triggered. Navigation dissolved. The ship drifted not through space, but across consequence. On the bridge, Tyler watched the stars blink in and out, rearranging. They're rewriting where we are, he murmured. In the hall, the thrones filled, no longer empty. Each god fragment seated itself, staring at Marcus. Speak your name, the central one commanded. I have many, Marcus said. But the one that matters now is bearer of reclamation. A pause. Then all 9 thrones bowed, and the 10th throne began to rise. For the first time in eons, the gods were not worshipped. They were remembered. The 10th throne rose, and silence deepened. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of potential. It wasn't carved, it wasn't placed. It was willed into being by the act of memory restored. Marcus approached it. Every step pressed back against him, like walking through a tide of history. But he moved with certainty. He had not come to claim. He had come to answer. Behind him, the crew of the Enuma Elish stood motionless, eyes wide. Tyler's voice broke the silence. He's not just representing us anymore. No, Mallory murmured. He is us. The god fragments spoke in chorus, 9 harmonics forming one idea. This seat was made for none, not for hierarchy, for harmony. Marcus turned to face them. Then why does it respond to me? Because you are not seated above, you are seated through. The throne pulsed. Visions poured from its arms and base, flickering through wars, wonders, betrayals, births. Humanity's path, not sanitized, not curated, truth. Most would run from this, one god said. I did, Marcus replied. And I returned. The throne accepted him, not with command, but communion. The chamber changed. The bridge behind them twisted into fractal pathways. Doors of thought opened, corridors of choice. Opportunity, danger. The gods withdrew, not in defeat, in trust. You were called savage, the last god said, by those who feared what they did not understand. We still are, Marcus answered, and still, you remember. You endure. The throne flared. From Anulkar, a pulse exploded. Across the council worlds, ancient machines long dormant bloomed to life. Vaults opened. Obelisks realigned. Structures rose from ocean floors and ice tombs. Messages appeared, written in the old tongue, decipherable only to those who had heard the eye answer. The word they all shared, reclamation. In Geneva Complex 7, Dr. Carnes wept. It's happening, he whispered. Humanity has become a vector. And deep within Anulkar, Marcus rose from the throne. The chamber shifted to acknowledge him, not a ruler, not a god. A bridge. The gods were not to be overthrown. They were to be met. And for the first time, a human had crossed the threshold where memory becomes prophecy. The pulse from Anulkar spread like wildfire across the ancient galactic lattice. Faint at first, like a memory struggling to breathe, but growing stronger with each system it touched. It bypassed relays. ignored permissions, and overrode silence itself. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, the Eye of Anu shuddered once more. Delegates rose in panic, but it was not Marcus they feared now. It was that he had been acknowledged. The Enuma Elish returned to known space, not through slipstream or gate, but reappearance. One moment, the ship was gone. The next, it hung silent in Earth's orbit, its surface slightly altered, its outline too perfect. Geneva Complex 7 activated every protocol. But before orders could be barked, Marcus's voice transmitted, "Mission complete. Awaiting next directive." The Council demanded answers. Marcus offered none. Instead, Earth offered coordinates. 37 of them. Locations where reclamation sites had stirred. Where gates had begun to whisper again. The Council voted for containment. The gates ignored them. In the ruins of Veritak, a slumbering vault opened and spilled light across a dead city. In the oceans beneath Callus Prime, glyphs ignited across a submerged colossus. And deep within the moon Io, a signal shaped like Marcus's voice repeated, "The age of memory is over. The age of becoming begins." Mallory stood before one such gate, this one formed of obsidian and bone, nested in the roots of a planet-wide tree. "It's beautiful," he said. Tyler adjusted his gear. "It's waiting for us to catch up." Back on Earth, Marcus stood before a new gathering. Not politicians, not soldiers, but carriers. People who had heard the call, who had seen visions, who had dreamed in the language of the old gods. "We were called savages," Marcus said. "But the gods knew better, and now, they wait for our answer." The stars above him flared, not with light, but with invitation. And one by one the ships rose, not in conquest, in return, to claim what had never been lost, only forgotten.